the question of Armies versus recently the European Commission has moved to review the Bloc 2035 zero emission target for new cars amid rising pressure from vehicle manufacturers and some member states to examine timing and carve out. Major manufacturers and industry leaders warn that supply chain stays slower sector. At the same time, Commission officials have signaled they want to stick to ambitious battery industrial policy to reduce friction. High-profile executives and national leaders have publicity pushed. Separately, debate continues across Europe about the role of human rights, public health and security coordination at EU and national level. DEC outlined title slides, road rights and response role in drug control, context overview, EU climate and automotive regulation 2035 rising industry pressures for postponement, parallel debate, military role in drugs war, automotive current policy 2035 zero emission sales deadline, Commission's climate targets, yield concern, job losses and competitiveness, supply chain support, transition with incentives and industrial policy. Policy options for automotive sector, flexibility timeline by vehicle class, national armies and the war on drugs contest. Growing debate on EU member state. Examples from Latin America and maritime interdiction, risk and safeguard of military involvement, legal and human rights concerns, oversight and proper policy options for drug strategy, strengthening Europe only in support, recommendation and next steps. Keep 2035 target but add flexibility with strict oversight. Prioritize public health in drug policy. Below are 50 short direct advisory sentences is posted as questions. Engine, phase out and military roles in the drug fight. Should policymakers publish a transparent, evidence-based assessment fuel and hybrids before changing the 2035 would a staged should the Commission demand clear time-bound plans from battery sourcing and domestic cell production before could targeting transitional support for parts suppliers and SMEs prevent factory. Should the EU tie any flexibility on deadline to review establishing a single EU battery supply industrial roadmap? Should governments increasing incentives for can a clear EU-wide charging infrastructure 2035 rule? Would greater transparency on total cost of ownership? Should the Commission require independent lifecycle? Would conditionally temporary carve outs for genuine policy? Can the EU scale public or should member States coordinate tax treatment of electricity versus fossil fuels to avoid market distortions. Would a competitiveness safeguard for regions with high automotive employment linked to reskill fund actively addresses unfair subsidies by non-E industries? Could temporary fiscal support be structured as would clear the rules on synthetic climate outcomes of various delay keep options? Would a public commitment to keep the can industry and unions negotiate social dialogue? Should government accelerate permitting and land issue uses reforms to charging ups? Would redirecting some fossil fuel subsidies into EV and battery supply fundamentally preferable? Could an EU-wide certification? Should Brussels require automakers to publish? When it comes to drugs, should national governments resist strict legal safeguards and parliamentary approval? Would clarifying the legal limits of this prefer police-led intelligence driver roles? Would investing in specialized anti-organized crime policy units be more effective long-term than militarizing the border intelligence sharing via Europol and Eurojust be extended the first line of defense against transactional trafficking? Could the EMC DDA's public would deploying armies for for compromise? Should member states oversight and independent investigation mechanisms be mandatory whenever armed forces are used in drug operations? EU fund pilot programs that pair military logistical outcomes? Should any EU guidance require measurable? Would training for armed forces on human rights precondition to any domestic deployment? Rights proportionality and policing standards be a precondition to any domestic deployment? Could the EU negotiate clear NATO EU coordination rules for member states that want to use armed forces for drugs? Should policymakers avoid language to would a strategic focus on reducing demand through treatment, education and socio-term harm? Can courts and parallel contest would integrated anti-corruption models into any anti-drug mission Latin American and other models before endorsing military appropriations? Could the EU fund capacity building for without direction combat deployments? Would investing in forces pay greater dividends against deployments? Should emergency temporary deployments to explicitly would a combined strategy that pairs green industrial and social drug policies and EG political can the EU produce a single security and resilience while crime response together? Should all decisions about military use in domestic context as accompanied community engagement plans. Would an independent EU level monitoring mechanism covering emissions improve policy credible and course correction? So, I will provide you road lights response. EU 2035 engine phase out and military role in drug control. For national policy, EU climate and automotive regulation 2035 debate military role in drug wars. Automotive phase out current policy 2000 climate e-fuel size transactions. Industry concerned job losses, competitive supply chain bottles, slower EV adoption calls for Commission's position keep ambitions, climate goals, provide transition induce industrial policy for batteries and EVs. Policy options automotive flexible strict sustainability rules for e-fuels. Debate on military role in drug enforcement examples. Policy options automotive flexibility deadlines by vehicles, class, battery and charging infrastructure administration, strict sustainability rules and fee rules. Recommendation and next steps. Maintain 2035 target with conditional flexibility. Invest in workers. Reskilling and EV transition, limit military role, require oversight, balancing security with public health approaches. Road rights and responsible policy. EU climate automotive regulation postponement, debate military role in drugs war. Automotive phase out current policy 2035 years and transitions. Job losses and competitiveness risk till next slower EV adoption calls for delay flexibility. Keep ambition, climate goals, provide transition, consentive, industrial policy for batteries, EVs, commission position. Add some photos we will provide. Future of EU cars. EU at crossroads. Future of EU cars. EU at crossroads. EU Parliamentary Europe inquiry. This is EU to stay on course comment. Dear friends, thank you for listening.